The man pulled out his silver case. Normally I'd deny a smoke from this guy, but that was some intense shit. He inhaled deeply, looking at the blood on the glass. He let out his first puff of smoke and said to take a walk with him. I was frustrated and scared, but anything, anywhere, was better than here right now. He took me to an office with a desk and 2 chairs. The man in black pulled out another vanilla folder. I was already worried. What was I going to see? It was worse than anything I could have imagined. This chemical was something unique. One that would allow us to exist in other frequencies of reality. Humans developed an immunity. This immunity would prevent us from being taken by aliens working with the government. This is where these aliens live, in that alternate reality. But our bodies wouldn't allow us to go with them for long. We would eventually phase back to our own frequency. That's where the government came in. Like tuning a radio, they injected a chemical in us that would change our DNA, taking away this immunity forever. In exchange for teleportation technology, the government allowed this. It didn't say everything they were doing with us, but there were pictures of horrible experiments. All of the people looked like that person in that room. Somehow, for some reason, the chemical also took away our ability to sleep, causing madness, hallucinating the whole time, phasing in and out of reality. At this point, I had no choice but to help them. If I denied this far along, I would be killed or put in jail. Maybe I would end up the next test subject. I tried to look as calm as possible, but I was horrified. I couldn't wait to get out of there. Thankfully, the man in black got up to escort me out. When he opened the door, it didn't lead to where we just walked in from. It was right outside the big concrete wall. My vehicle was parked right outside the door. All of those soldiers and scientists were gone. Just the endless horizon with the lonely road. The same road I came here on. I started to get lightheaded from all of this confusion. I needed to go home. I was ready to speed away until the man in black leaned on my window. He told me to get some rest, that there was a lot of work to do. I stared ahead and just drove. When I finally got home, I ran out of the car, scanning both ends of the street and looking around the house. I just had to be sure they were okay. Nobody was in the living room. All of the lights were off. I dashed toward the hallway. I was relieved to see my wife in the baby's room. After I helped her to bed, I had to go to the kitchen. I needed a glass of something strong, especially after today. I couldn't stop thinking about everything I saw in that folder. They were doing unspeakable things to people, even pregnant women and babies. The government set up human trafficking rings. There were so many big-name companies involved, making cults and religions based around these practices. The formula I was to perfect kept us there. But there were studies of people starting to adapt, phasing back into their own reality. They needed me to perfect this. What the hell am I supposed to do? I was so tired from everything, but if I wasn't, I probably would have never went to sleep. The next morning, my wife woke me up, asking if I could get the door. She was in the kitchen with the baby. I figured it was the man in black. What did he want this time? I answered the door frustrated, but to my surprise, it wasn't who I thought it was. It was Wallace. Before I could give him a piece of my mind, he apologized. He said he was sorry for how they acted, saying that he and his wife came on too strong. He said they were just excited to make friends. He invited me out for a drink, and I didn't know how to react at first. But after all this craziness, it was nice to have someone act normal. I figured, what's the worst that could happen? So I went. I still didn't feel 100% about this. That's just my nature. So I drove my own vehicle. He said to meet him at a joint called the 45 Barrel. When I told my wife I was going, she was happy. She was glad I was playing nice and making friends. She just wanted everyone to get along. I just hoped it would be that easy. It took me a while to find the place. It was a good drive away. It seemed to be in the downtown area. I could see Wallace already walking inside. I parked around back and went in. This place didn't seem like a place Wallace would be. But there he was, sitting on a bar stool. He had already ordered our drinks. I greeted him and said thank you. I told him I would pay for it, but I order my own drinks. Wallace just laughed at me and said no worries. Our drinks clanked, and we gave cheers. I was never much of a social person, so I was worried there would be awkward silence. To my relief, Wallace did most of the talking. He told me about he and his wife's relationship and what they did for a living. He worked in aviation. She was a homemaker. He didn't seem like too bad of a guy though. Time went on, and I was a few drinks in. As I grew more tipsy, I started to tune Wallace out. It seemed he was feeling good and was rambling, even buying rounds for everyone there, engaging in conversation with patrons of the 45 Barrel. I was lost in thought, looking around me and down at my glass, taking slow sips. not hearing a thing. Thinking about a life here in this town. Maybe I could just block it out. Go on with my job and life, and take care of my family. The tension of all the secrecy and wrongdoing. Knowing that I helped bring a plague upon us all. Would I really be able to go on? Not even telling a soul? Things weren't so simple. I don't know if it was because of the alcohol, but I started to get bad nerves and anxiety. I went to the bathroom to rinse my face, hoping it would sober me up a bit. When I left the bathroom, I was shocked to see Wallace dropping pills into drinks. The drinks of a couple he had been talking to. When I saw this, I knew it was time. Time to get the hell out of there. Wallace didn't even notice me leaving. He was so entranced by the couple, slowly fading away, succumbing to both the alcohol and the pills that Wallace dropped in their drinks. I slipped by and made it out back to my vehicle. I drove a couple of blocks over, hidden in an alleyway. I wanted to rush home, but something inside told me I had to find out what was going to happen. I waited for a long time, my eyes peeled, watching like a hawk. Then there he is, Wallace, acting like he's taking the couple home. With a brick. He struggled to get the woman out of the car. After great effort, he dragged her body into the dark daycare. I quickly dashed inside when he went to get the man. His body was heavier, so I knew he would take more time. I hid behind a long counter in the daycare. There were no lights on. The only light was coming from the back door open. I was worried about making noise, but Wallace was struggling with the man's body so much, he didn't even hear me. I stayed ducked behind the counter, not making the slightest sound or move. Wallace finally got him inside and closed the back door completely. It was pitch black in the room. All I could hear was his footsteps. He walked to the corner of the room, After the sound of a wooden creak, followed light from below. There was a passageway under the floor. What was down there? Wallace kicked the couple down the hole. I heard loud thumps from their bodies hitting the surface below. Wallace made his way down the entrance, not even bothering to shut the door. He must have done this a lot. He was way too comfortable. I pulled out a Zippo from my back pocket, lighting it to find the brick he propped the door open with. The passageway was lit by torches on the wall. There was furniture that looked right out of a castle. Large red curtains covered the walls. Wallace stopped at the end of the hall. He was yelling at someone on his right-hand side, telling them to grab the guy's body while he dragged the girls. He disappeared around the corner, and there were footsteps coming near me. It was someone in a dark robe. He bent over to pick up the body. As soon as I saw the back of his hooded head, I came from behind the curtain, striking him with the brick. He fell down, covering his head. He was dazed, but not out. He turned around to look at me. Then I slammed the brick in his face. That brought him down good. His ugly mug had it coming. I dragged the guy behind the red curtain, covering him as best as I could. I made my way down the hall, peeking around that right turn. It led to a bridge made of bricks and bone. I could only pray they weren't real. Under the bridge was endless black. All I could think when I looked down at the darkness was that person's eyes. The bridge led to a ceremonial room. A giant room with so many people in there. I didn't cross the bridge, but I stayed at the entrance to see everything. All of these people in dark robes chanting hymns. There was a woman at the center of the room, wearing a black theater mask. She yelled at the crowd, demanding silence. She had a demonic tone to her voice. She kept referring to herself as the Countess. This Countess had a man standing behind her. He was in military fatigues, but the shadows covered his face. He was holding a metal box under one arm. During the ceremony, she turned to the man and bowed. He opened the box, handing it to her, revealing a large golden syringe. The size of the needle alone gave me chills. The crowd began to boo loudly as a man and a woman were brought forth, held by robed people. They were brought to the center of the room. It wasn't the same couple. This woman was pregnant. The Countess started yelling while pointing the syringe at the couple. The crowd began grunting and growling, pointing at them and yelling slander. The man and woman were terrified, begging and pleading the people to let them go. The Countess slowly walked towards the pregnant woman, who began to shriek. The Countess touched her pregnant belly with the tip of the syringe. She then thrusted the syringe into the belly of the woman. The man screamed and flailed with all of his might, trying to save his woman. To no avail, he was overpowered, and they tossed him over the bridge, down into the darkness. Moments after he hit the ground, there were horrible sounds. One of the acolytes then tossed a torch over the bridge. It revealed many of those people with those scratched out black eyes surrounding the man. They were ravenous. I thought the man was dead when he landed, but he woke up as they ripped him to shreds. I could hear him begging in agony for all of it to end. The Countess then gave a command. She said to light the fire. A dozen robed people began pouring gasoline over the ledge. When their canisters emptied, they threw more torches. As soon as they fell, bright flames shot from below. The pit of darkness became a flaming pool of fury. I was all the way at the entrance, and I could still feel the heat. The people in the room took off their robes. To my shock, they were all naked. Men and women all around, only wearing black masks. They blindly approached one another, engaging in sexual acts, oblivious to the horrific screaming from below. I was petrified. I was going to vomit if I didn't look away. These people were getting off on the pain of others. I knew what was in that syringe. Those things killing that man. That was like that person I saw in the examination room. That syringe was filled with what I was to perfect. The couple must have had a potential for immunity in their genes. Their baby could have been born immune. And this was their punishment. A sentencing of death for the results of fate. Her DNA must have been shifting already. After only a short time, she was vigorously scratching her eyes, as if she was trying to claw at the very fiber of her being. Right before my eyes, she stabbed her stomach with her nails, over and over, tearing through her skin. She was speaking frantic gibberish. She was trying to rip the baby out of her. I began to shed tears from my eyes. It was on the ground. The cord still attached. She got it out of her. It was lifeless on the ground. There must have been a part of her still in there. She cried and wailed before collapsing. Only moments ago, she was a normal person. I ran for my life out of there. I didn't care about anything. I ran faster than ever before, climbing back into the daycare and out of the back door. Thankfully, my vehicle was untouched where I left it. I hopped right in and started the engine quickly. I didn't care about getting pulled over. I didn't slow down. I had a million things on my mind, but the main one that stood out, that couple could have been us and our baby. As soon as I got home, I rushed in. My wife was holding the baby, listening to the radio. She jumped a bit, but she realized it was me. She smiled at me until she saw the look on my face. She asked me what's wrong, putting the baby in the crib. I just walked close to her, kissed her, and started sobbing to my knees, so hard that it made her cry too. We only stopped because our baby woke up. After we both calmed down, I told her everything. She went quiet for a while. We held each other, but she didn't say a thing. I just hope she didn't hate me, even though I deserved it. There was only one thing to do. I made a plan. It was spur of the moment, but that was how I did my best work. She didn't like my plan at all. I didn't like it either. But it had to be done. We packed some stuff for her and the baby. I told her to drive away. Far away. Then I gave her directions to a safe spot I knew of. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do. Saying goodbye to both of them. Watching them drive away, I waited. When they were out of sight, I was broken. I already missed them before they left. It seemed impossible to get it together. But I had to. For all of us. I had to put on a face of confidence at the lab. After I got the face on, I hid my pistol in my belt. I went back, acting completely invested. I was all about the project, even going as far as giving everyone else orders. Nothing else mattered. I was busy gathering material. Anything flammable, anything explosive. I was in charge of the lab, and because of my demeanor, nobody asked questions. No soldiers were even allowed to enter. I said we could risk contamination. I started loading up the lab with files. Files of the formula since creation. When I felt the time was nearing, I sent the staff home for the day. They were happy to go home, so that was easy. The lab had a test wing next to it, full of subjects. Death would be a better fate than that. But if some happen to survive and break free, it'll be the diversion needed. I grabbed a canister of gasoline, pouring it all over everything in that lab. I then activated the failed test protocol. It was what made fire shoot out of the vents. I could never get the image out of my head. I made my way down a hall outside, heading toward a vehicle bay. There was an extremely loud boom behind me. Alarms sounded everywhere. There were scientists in other sectors panicking. Soldiers running around from every corner. I acted like I was doing a normal evac. I made it to a military jeep, with the keys still in the ignition. I floored the pedal, driving like a bat out of hell. When I got to the gate, I didn't stop. I was ready for them to shoot at me, but they told me they were under attack. The subjects must have got out. This bought me a bit more time. I could make it to the radio tower. I know there were still good people here that were clueless as to what was going on. I can tell them to leave. Then I can tell the world. I knew they'd find me if I did this, but that was all part of the plan. I was speeding so fast, I could see the tower in the distance. I drove head-on into the radio station. I was bruised up, but I jumped out. People were screaming in the lobby. They said they were going to call the police, so I fired a warning shot into the floor. I told everybody to shut up and listen to me, to just let me tell the people something important. I told them to let me do that, then go home, to pack their stuff and get out of town for good. They were all silent and just stared. I had to remember that these were normal people, so I had to lie. I said there was a bomb being dropped, that our country was under attack. They ate it right up and stormed out. I needed them out of there anyway. I knew how to operate everything I required. After they showed me where everything was, I let them leave, and I locked the doors behind me as I entered the booth. I set the signal to broadcast as far as the power would take it. I had no idea what I was going to say. But like I said, spur of the moment was my best work. I grabbed the microphone and told everyone listening to get out of town, that it was a state of emergency. I knew with a town like this, I didn't have to say much
I had to hold the baby. I had to keep driving. I didn't know where to go, what to do. I just kept going.
It was very late, but she could see a roadblock ahead. This was the worst time. She had her gun on the passenger seat. She slowed down, putting the gun under the seat. There were a few soldiers with rifles. They smiled and came to her window. One of them leaned over and began talking for the rest of them and apologized for the roadblock. He said there was some trouble with water pipes, all while peeking in the car some more. Then asking why she was carrying the baby while driving. She said she was visiting family, that the baby got fussy on the drive. She tried to end the discussion quickly, saying she would go the other way. He quickly responded, saying it was the only way. They stared at each other for a couple seconds, knowing they were both lying. The soldiers then pointed their rifles at her, yelling for her to get out. Her heart pounded as she reached down. Then from behind the soldiers stepped a man. He was under an umbrella, wearing a black suit with a pistol in hand. He pointed the pistol at her head. Then 3 shots were fired. Everything went quiet. In odd timing, the rain started to fall, along with the bodies of the soldiers and the man in black. She was always a killer quick shot. She was hit in the shoulder, but she drove all night, still holding the baby. I wish I never brought them there. I want to see them so bad. But I can't.